Berlin, 1935. The whisper among bankers and generals is this: Germany has no money left. The war reparations from the previous decade, hyperinflation nightmares, the collapse of the mark, the coffers are empty. Yet somewhere in the back rooms of power, a secret begins to unfold. By 1938, factories across the Reich are churning out tanks, artillery, aircraft, and munitions at a rate unimaginable just a few years before. How could a bankrupt nation, under the crippling burdens of post-World War I treaties and economic collapse, suddenly build an army powerful enough to reshape Europe? Before I reveal the answer, imagine you are chancellor in 1933. The treasury is empty. Foreign loans are off the table. The people are desperate. If you had to build a powerful army, how would you raise the funds? Use taxes? Issue public debt? Ask foreign lenders? Or maybe something more creative? Drop your predictions in the comments, then listen, because the real story is even more astonishing. Imagine a hypothetical 1933 Germany with these conditions untouched. The economy remains depressed. Public finances are tight. Foreign loans are unavailable or politically unfeasible. Treaty restrictions and global scrutiny prevent overt rearmament funding. The government can rely only on transparent official means: taxes, conventional bonds, public loans. In this normal financing scenario, the state would attempt to raise funds through public debt or taxation. Every mark spent would show up in the official budget, with clear evidence, public scrutiny, inflation risks, and domestic or foreign backlash. Now imagine another scenario: the actual path taken by the regime. A hidden, off-the-books route that uses creative finance, shell companies, and silent credit. In 1933, shortly after Hjalmar Schacht became president of the Reichsbank, the regime quietly established a dummy company called Metallurgische Forschungsgesellschaft, better known as MEFO. MEFO had no real products, no business operations, just a shell. Its nominal capital was tiny, but it had a powerful trick. It issued promissory notes known as Mefo Bills. Mefo Bills worked like a parallel currency. An armaments firm delivered tanks, artillery, munitions as contracted by the government. Instead of being paid in money, they received Mefo Bills from MEFO. Those bills were legally negotiable. The firm could take them to any German bank, get discounted, or hold them. Banks, in turn, could rediscount the bills at the Reichsbank. The bills initially matured in 6 months, but design allowed successive extensions of 90 days, effectively postponing redemption far into the future. By constantly rolling over the bills, the regime avoided mass redemptions and prevented a sudden demand for cash that might cause inflation or draw attention. In effect, these Mefo bills functioned as a parallel currency, a clandestine money supply expansion. Official budgets remained clean, public debt appeared manageable, yet real spending rose dramatically. By April 1938, outstanding Mefo bills reached approximately 12 billion Reichsmarks. Official government debt through standard bonds or loans by 1938 was about 19 billion Reichsmarks. That means more than half of the rearmament funding bypassed official accounting entirely. At that scale, the regime effectively tripled German national debt between 1933 and 1938, but did so secretly, off balance sheet, hidden from both citizens and the international community. A contemporary finance official bluntly described Mefo bills as money printing, disguised, but money nonetheless. Thanks to MEFO, production and spending skyrocketed, largely outside public view. Military spending soared from a few hundred million Reichsmarks early in the 1930s to billions by 1938. The influx of state-backed payment, albeit in Mefo bills, injected liquidity into heavy industry, armament firms, infrastructure companies, and chemical producers. Factories ran at full capacity, jobs multiplied, and infrastructure expanded. Unemployment, which had plagued Germany after the Great Depression and hyperinflation era, was slashed. The regime transformed economic despair into full or near-full employment by mid to late 1930s under the rearmament and public works drive. Economic recovery boosted public confidence, stabilized society, and created a war-ready economy, all while the true source of funding remained hidden. Politically, this translated into strengthened support for the regime. Economic revival, jobs, and public works cemented domestic stability, while rearmament proceeded under a cloak of plausible deniability. Organizationally, the regime merged economic and military power. Industrial giants and armament firms had guaranteed orders. Banks held state-backed bills. The central bank masked debt. The state, industry, and military formed a unified war-ready machine. But the entire system rested on deception. Mefo Bills were real obligations. Once redemption pressure rose, the regime would be forced to pay with real marks and real resources. The only way to sustain the illusion was through an ever-expanding war economy, conquest, and seizure of resources. Let's return to our hypothetical normal financing Germany. If the Reich tried to fund rearmament openly through taxes or conventional bonds, several consequences would emerge. To fund rapid rearmament, Germany would need billions of Reichsmarks, showing up plainly in public accounts. This would invite domestic backlash and foreign scrutiny. Transparent debt would require higher taxes or more borrowing. In 1933 to 1934, with widespread economic depression and poverty, this would provoke social unrest. Borrowing openly would be visible and risky, potentially drawing diplomatic attention or preventive measures. Even raising 5 billion Reichsmarks through bonds or taxation would be only a fraction of what MEFO funded. Rearmament would be slower, factories run at partial capacity, and the speed and scale of military buildup would be far lower. Germany would likely build a weak, modest force, insufficient for the rapid mechanized army it had by 1939. Here's how the secret financing unfolded step by step. In 1933 to 1934, Schacht becomes Reichsbank president and MEFO is established. By 1934 to 1935, MEFO issues MEFO Bills to armament contractors. Contractors deliver weapons and infrastructure, receive MEFO Bills. Banks discount or hold them and can rediscount them at the Reichsbank. By 1935, the regime publicly reinstates conscription and announces military expansion. By 1936, the four-year plan formalizes economic military integration. By mid-1938, MEFO Bills outstanding reach 12 billion Reichsmarks, combined with 19 billion in official debt, massively increasing government spending while avoiding detection. As the first wave of MEFO Bills matures in 1938 to 1939, the government faces a cash flow crisis. Redeeming all bills at once would demand enormous cash outflows. The solution: conquest, occupation, plunder, and exploitation of territories to acquire resources and finance the state. The hidden debt effectively underwrote Germany's strategy for aggressive war. The MEFO financing reshaped the entire economy. Armament demand revitalized heavy industry, chemicals, steel, infrastructure, and construction. Factories employed millions. Social stability improved. National pride and propaganda wrapped economic revival in a narrative of rebuilding. The regime consolidated power. State, banks, industry, and military merged into a cohesive war-ready structure. Alternate scenarios without MEFO likely would have resulted in limited rearmament, slow economic growth, or political crises. A weaker army, delayed industrial buildup, and social unrest could have prevented the rapid, aggressive military campaigns Germany achieved. Instead, the hidden financing allowed Germany to rearm rapidly, revive its economy, and consolidate political and industrial power. The war machine was built on debt, illusion, and ambition, ultimately relying on future conquest to sustain the financial structure. As Schacht himself described, the MEFO system enabled the Reichsbank to lend by a subterfuge to the government what it normally or legally could not do. Another contemporary finance official said Mefo Bills were essentially a way of printing money, disguised but effective. This story reveals a harsh truth. Wars are not fought with bullets alone. They are financed with secrets, accounting tricks, and economic manipulation. A state with no visible resources can wield destructive power if it masters financial deception and organizational control. Economic revival, even built on hidden debt, translates into social stability, industrial capacity, and political power. Controlling money, whether visible or hidden, is often equivalent to controlling history itself. What do you think? Could a modern state attempt hidden debt financing today to build military or economic power without collapsing its economy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this dive into economic history intrigued you, subscribe and hit the bell. More hidden stories of power and economics are coming.